Welcome everyone to the CEMS webinar series. And as you can see, today we're not in a typical webinar setting, but we wanted a bit more interactive today. Just to get you started a little bit, so the webinars are organized by the CEMS Alumni Association, the Student Board, and the Global Office. And also, if you missed a webinar, you can always rewatch it on the CEMS YouTube channel. Just a quick heads up regarding housekeeping rules. So please keep yourself muted during the webinar. If you have questions during the presentation, then feel free to use the chat box. And if you have questions after the presentation, just raise your hand and then we'll unmute you and then you can speak up. And of course, we're really looking forward to a lot of interaction here. And a lot of curious questions from your side. I think Annika will be very happy about that to help you further. And now I would like to introduce you our speaker today, Annika Kühne. She's CEMS alumna 2014 from Vienna and St. Gallen, and in her role as enterprise account manager for LinkedIn, she especially enjoys the fact that she usually gets to travel a lot to places such as Belgrade or Monaco to visit her clients. And in her free time, she loves gardening and making the most out of her 4 square meter sized balcony. And furthermore, feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions about the hottest chilies, because she is an expert for that. And then I would like to hand over to Annika to get us started.
Perfect. So great, and thank you everyone for making me host the session. It's a pleasure to be back in the CEMS world, CEMS alumni, and still an ongoing CEMS students world. Alumna 2014 made me feel a little old, but I guess it's okay. Now I'm back to share my knowledge, and I was thinking because I'm working at LinkedIn, it makes sense for me to actually help you and deep dive into your profile, make the best of you and your personal brand. And as Caroline already said, feel free to share any questions in the chat, and then later on also openly for the Q&A. And let's keep it as interactive as possible. So first of all, I would start with a poll, and if it does not work, bear with me because the first time I'm launching that. So I'm launching it now. I hope you can see it. So my first question would be, have professional networking platforms become more relevant to you during COVID times? And obviously during, LinkedIn is not the only platform in the world. There are in the different countries more than that. I can see votes are coming in. It's changing quite a bit with every single person. So we now have over 80%, 90%, and it's quite equal. So there are people saying yes, definitely, then nearly 40% equal, a little, and no, not really. So quite diverse. So let's see that we can get most of it for everyone. Here you can see the results, share results. Yes, now you can see, okay, a little and no, not really were the main elements. And I have a second question straight afterward before we begin, and this is my second poll. This is, what do you think is a main activity where members spend their time on LinkedIn? So there's either applying for jobs, researching maybe competition in your current role, clicking on other members' profiles, social selling, staying in touch with your network, or also recruiting in case you're in that kind of role, or people are in that role. So let's give us a little bit of time. Okay, so no one is researching any competition. That's for sure. At least not in this, or you think not a lot of members are doing this. So now we have 19 out of, we have over 80%, so I'm ending the poll now. And as you can see, we have share results now. So staying in touch with the network is one of the main things that are doing. Very close though to clicking on other members' profiles, and indeed clicking on the members' profiles is the activity that members on LinkedIn are doing the most. So really checking out how does your CV look like, what does your face look like. So this is really what people are doing most. So this is also why we're doing this session today, because it's so important if you're interested in having a brand online and a brand on LinkedIn. that you really understand and make your thoughts up of how you want to present yourself. And if you think of maybe Googling your name and you have a LinkedIn profile, usually that LinkedIn profile comes up quite high in the search results. So maybe potential employers or clients or your network, when looking for you, might come across this profile. So it's better to have it in line to what you want to display than and to really show your brand. So today, what we're going to do is just a quick look at why LinkedIn, or what's going on with LinkedIn. Second one is, as next, we're going to look at what's your profile and your story, why this is relevant, and we'll have different steps on what you can think about before going into beyond your LinkedIn profile. So there's also the entire thing about personal branding, sharing content, writing articles, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. And before or while registering, you also had the opportunity to give me some information about what you're expecting from the session. I think most of the points I will tackle today. Maybe some things I won't tackle is anything product related. So there was, for example, topic about marketing solutions. This is not something I will be talking about today. Also, social selling is not main point of the agenda, although a good profile definitely feeds into a good, like, being successful in social selling, because people, as we just defined, will definitely click on your profile. And since it's a virtual setting and everyone is in front of their screens, feel free to have another window open next to the Zoom meeting where you have your LinkedIn profile open, so you can click around and see what's going on. So this is supposed to be an interactive session, and doing the LinkedIn, clicking in LinkedIn sideways is definitely allowed, so that you can take most out of it. Great, so then let's start. And first of all, I said, why LinkedIn? I think very easy, because why LinkedIn is quite a big social platform. We're going to stats in a little bit, but we have over 700 million members on the platform as of now. So when you're applying, for example, for a new job, or having a job that is, for example, in sales, working with client, working with someone in your network, with partners, for example, the likelihood is very high that your profile is going to be searched. So that's the relevancy on one hand. So what is LinkedIn's value proposition? It's really creating opportunity, which I find is great as an employee myself for LinkedIn, because this is really a great value proposition, also a little bit helping other people, which I find it's great, connecting people to opportunity. And the opportunity could really be whatever you define as opportunity. As we discussed, some of you are still students, others are in the middle of their professional career. So it's really, for some of you, it might be networking might be most relevant. For others, it might be finding a job or a new job, or selling whatever you're offering at the moment. But also, if you're founding a company, for example, finding the right partners or investors is also something that is going on LinkedIn quite often. Or very simple, mentoring. I think mentoring fits in all categories of life. So this is really here. LinkedIn is really there to connect you to opportunity. And as you can see, this was what I wanted to show. LinkedIn is a multitude of data points. So we have over 700 million members, a lot of companies on the platform, jobs, skills, schools, and knowledge. So it's a really vast and very powerful tool of insights. And you have the opportunity to connect with all of these 700 million members and get awareness of them. So I think that's quite relevant. Make the most of it, connect to the right people. And talking about connecting and networking, before we even start to go into your profile, because a lot of people, you might see that a lot of people want to connect with you, and sometimes they're more and sometimes they're less relevant to your network. And I always advise to make sure that they're not completely off what you want to have in your network, because of the people you accept, you can see all like the posts they do in your news feed and what they're engaging with. So if you just accept contacts or contacting with other people for the sake of network, that's one strategy. However, I would think it's more relevant to have a great curated network, to really make sure that it's the right content that you're seeing and that people see from your side. Great. So, and then we're already starting with with getting more into like the hands-on part, the profile and your story. And I think the most important thing is really be authentic. And for everyone, authenticity looks very different. Some people want to share a lot on LinkedIn, others don't want to do so, and that's completely fine. I'm probably, if you check out my profile, I'm probably on the side that I'm not too over engaging, at least with sharing everything I'm doing. Other people, which I'm very a little bit jealous of, are much more on top of things and sharing a lot of what they're doing, their achievements. So both or everything is okay. I mean, the spectrum is very broad. And I think the most important thing is that it is really authentic. Your profile is authentic and fits with you, what you want to show to the world, and really the story that you want to display with your personal brand. And the most important thing is definitely adding a picture. And probably most of you already have a picture. And previously, or in the old days, we all had our nice and curated application pictures taken professionally by a professional photograph. And nowadays, the more we see on the platform, especially with COVID, not a lot of these pictures are on the platform anymore. People get more and more casual. And nowadays with our smartphones, it's very easy to take a quick picture in front of a white wall or another interesting background. So I would definitely check that this picture does not necessarily have to be in a suit and tie, but can be a lot more relaxed. Also, it depends on what industry you are in or you want to go for. So for example, if you're working in the sports industry or maybe some other more casual industry, it will be very different than if you're looking into like management consulting, which is usually a little bit more formal still. So I would also check, does the image I give from myself also fits within the industry I want to work for or I'm working in at the moment. But going for a photo is definitely the best way, and thinking about it makes it easier for people to connect to yourself, but also giving the first impression, because on LinkedIn, you obviously, if I can see some of you now in the video, for example, I get a quick understanding of what you look like, and I can see you sort of in the eye, but in the virtual world, on the platforms, it's a picture is probably second best to getting to know you in the real life. And the second thing next to your own picture is also the background picture. It's very blurry here in the back, but you could, for example, personalize it with a brand or with something that you love to. For example, I know people that love surfing, for example, or the ocean, so they would have like a nice picture of them surfing, because as I said, it's all about authenticity, and the brand itself and use yourself will become more and more relevant with more data points that you will share. But it also makes it easier to connect, because if you have a nice picture of surfing, for example, in the background, people can connect over the surfing picture and say, okay, I have the same interests, let's connect, working in the same industry. That might sound like a good plan. As a next point, that is quite new, a quite new feature, is the possibility of recording your name. And the example in the back, Sarah King, is quite easy. However, with my own name, Annika Kühne, and usually I have an umlaut in my name. I'm already spelling it not as in my passport, in the professional word, to make it easier for people. But this might be quite interesting for people that have very local names, not as much English names. Although my Irish colleagues make my life also very hard with Irish names, and I try my best, but listening to their name usually helps quite a lot. Also, not to be rude or like inappropriate. And usually after the third time you're asking how is your name pronounced, that's you feel a little bit silly. So you can go back here and record your name, but also listen to the name of others. And then, okay, here, just maybe a quick information, just they say hold your phone 10 centimeters away from your mouth, and obviously limiting background noise is also quite valuable in this regard. And I've also seen that people repeat their name, so they say it once and they say it a second time, so people really are aware of what the first person wants to be called. And maybe also, I don't see the chat at the moment, so Jeroen and Caroline, if there are any questions, can you just let me know?
Not yet, but
Not
if
yet.
there are any, we'll let you know, of course. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great. Then another thing that is also really valuable is adding your industry. And this can be interesting, and especially in the lines of people searching for other people in their industry to connect. So for example, peers, to exchange knowledge, but also for recruiters. So if a recruiter searches for someone in for their company, it usually they start with the industry just because the network is so vast. They want to broaden it down, and usually industry experience is relevant. So you can check. There are many different options. So I would go ahead and check on what make most sense. And maybe for the students, it might make sense because for some of you, you have done internships, or most of you, but it would make sense to adjust it to the industry that you want to work for. When you're applying for jobs or for internships, because then it's also easier to be found from the recruiter side. Oh. The next step is also quite interesting and quite timely, is showing that you're open for work. And this has been especially prominent as obviously last year, unfortunately, a lot of people had lost their jobs, but so that they can really show that they're open for work. And there are two different ways. You can show that you're open for work only for recruiters, so that only people who are actively searching for others are aware of what you're looking at. And then there is the option to show it to everyone. This might be the case in case that you don't have a job at the moment and looking for, then this is the option here below, share with all LinkedIn members. It gives you this little green ribbon. But on the other option that is not displayed here is really only share with recruiters. And to be honest, I do have it on, although not actively looking for a job, just because I'm very curious about who gets in touch with me. And in case I'm more actively looking for a job, then I can see, okay, these are people that think my profile is interesting to them, and maybe I'm not happy with who's reaching out and for what roles. Maybe I want to tweak a little bit. Okay, I would like to work in a different industry or get a different looking, for example, for managerial positions. Then I could say it here and tweak it a little bit, so I can so recruiters can find me even easier, and I have this feedback loop right away. And if you are working for a company, your company has invested in LinkedIn recruiters, the HR team, they can't see that you have turned it on. So for your own company, you don't have this feature. It's for obviously privacy reasons, but everyone else can see it, and you can see what's going on the market.
There's a question about the previous slide about the industry.
Yep.
So a lot of us are students. What would you recommend for students that don't really know yet what's different or what industry we want to work in? Like if we're considering different industries, can we choose multiple, or is it?
Yeah, thanks for sharing this question. It's a great question. So I would probably go, I mean, you can change it from time to time. There is only option for one, but I would go, I mean, you probably have, as a student, you have your top 3 priorities of industries that you would like to work for, a kind of industry. And I would go and see what's most adequate, and you can change it anytime. So for example, if your last internship was in consulting and you still have consulting, but now you say you're more interested into technology, for example, or pharmaceuticals, I would go ahead and more do like not where you come from, but more like the aspiration of where you want to go to. And you can change it anytime. Great. Perfect. Thank you so much. So now we're coming more into the nitty-gritty, and these were the easy ones or easier ones. So now it's like, as you can see already, a lot of text. So the trickier ones, or things where you have to put more thought in. On LinkedIn, you can see that there are 2 sections that are more about your resume. So one is the about section that you can see here, the summary. And the other one is really where you put in where you have worked before, your work experience, which is more like a CV. And in this about section, this can really go beyond your CV and your resume. So here you can highlight anything, any career accomplishments that haven't found a place anywhere else in your LinkedIn profile, but also maybe networking opportunities that you're looking into, your passions that you're interested. You can give more information, or something, for example, that I'm doing and that I see a lot of people are doing is just putting in, well, writing a little bit of text, but then also putting in keywords that fit your profile and for which you want to be, for which opportunities you want to be found. Because obviously the algorithm works the way that the more often, the more, well, it's on two ways, it works two ways. So obviously the more accurate, or the more, yeah, the more often you have relevant keywords that, for example, a recruiter is looking for, or someone else, just a regular LinkedIn member is looking for, the higher you rank up in the algorithm and in the search results for the recruiter or for another member in the platform. So if you could here, for example, you can say, place in text, but also just plain keywords, extra keywords that you want to be found for, if that makes sense. And this basically acts as your elevator pitch, and obviously can also be changed at any time. So for example, if you're changing role, or if you say, okay, you have a different focus now, or maybe you have a side hustle that is interesting, I would definitely put it in there if that makes sense and you want to show that, showcase that on LinkedIn as well. And part of the about section is also content that you can feature. So for example, you can feature videos, and I think there's also presentation slides that you can add in. You can link to YouTube videos and add pictures or articles. And I think that usually makes a lot of sense, especially if you have, for example, very interesting student projects, or also work-related projects, if you've been featured somewhere, so that it's really about you and your brand, what you're standing for, or maybe also some interesting content that you might to be able to connect over. And speaking of content, this is a feature. There is another feature coming, and this is, I don't know if it's yet launched all over the platform, but it will definitely come. This is content creation. So just today I read an article that is sort of Clubhousey. If you know the app, I've done so. I think it's no longer that relevant, at least not in my network. It might be still relevant for other parts of the world. So that you can create your own content, that people can engage with your content. I've only seen screenshots of it, so I'm not yet sure what it looked like. But it's obviously more content creation driven as a platform, because this was some feedback that people wanted, especially like for people like freelancing or in marketing, even selling. So this is really something that will be coming. But for now, uploading any interesting pictures or video might be interesting. If you're working, for example, in sales, this might be about your product. If you're working in HR, this might be employer branding. Or if you're a manager and you're hiring for your team, this might also be something in terms of employer branding. So there are a multitude of different facets that can be thinkable, and there is no best practice for this besides posting it. And again, if you look on my profile, I should definitely update my profile in this regard. I haven't had anything that I wanted to feature recently, but I'm sure you have great content that you can share with LinkedIn platform.
You have something to share after today, right? You're featured on the CEMS webinar series.
Exactly. So this is definitely something I could do, and I will do. This is a good highlight and a good achievement that I will definitely be proud of.
Yeah, and there's another question coming in about the previous slide as well, about the summary. Actually, two questions. So the first is, would you recommend speaking about yourself in like the first or the third person?
Good question. People have it very different. My honest thought would be have it in the first person, because I'm connecting with you and not a we. And if it's a we do this or we have done that, it's very personally, as I said, not like a set in stone thing. It always sounds like someone else has written into it, and it's more difficult to approach you. So I would definitely always go with a me, I. You can be, it's your profile, so it's your digital portfolio. You can be very egocentric in this regard, because people come there to get to know you and not someone else, because they're already interested in you and want to probably learn more about you.
Yeah, makes sense. And the follow-up question to that is, in the beginning you talked about authenticity, being authentic about yourself. In the summary, should you also mention maybe some weaknesses that you have as a person, because we tend to talk about only the good things that we stand for. Is it also a side that you would highlight in the summary, or is it something that you would not really promote on your LinkedIn profile?
If I'm speaking for me, I would probably not highlight it. I would only highlight the good and shiny things. If I would like to be more humble, I would say, I mean, probably every one of us has prepared, you know, the 3 weaknesses and 3 strengths for job interviews. So, and the weaknesses are not necessarily always like very bad weaknesses, but great weaknesses, like being too ambitious, or I don't know, always being on time, or too fast working. So I would rather go with this with these points. But in terms of personal brand, I think it always also could make sense maybe to brainstorm with your colleagues, or brainstorm with family, friends, with peers, to see, okay, what do they think you're really good at, and to really highlight that on your platform. So taking LinkedIn as an opportunity to be very self-reflection, to do a little bit of self-reflection, also get feedback from others. Does this answer the questions you think for your room?
Yep, great, thanks.
Perfect. Then I'm going to the next set, or the next step. This is the more detailed work experience. This is more the CV part, or you say, okay, which company? And for the company, be sure to always select, there will be a drop down. So for example, if I type in LinkedIn, there will always be a drop down, and be sure to click on the company and not just hit enter, because if I just hit enter, there is no connect with the logo, and usually you want to be connected with the logo and the company. So in case of you have some grayed out companies, then make sure, or go into it and check if there is maybe a logo available. And a logo is always available if the company has a company page on LinkedIn. And here I would say, as we said before, mention your achievements. I know for me, at least, it's always hard to describe the role where I'm at the moment, but maybe you have some elements or highlights that you can already mention. Here you can see it's well, proper text format. You could also go with bullet points. That would not really matter. And here you can also see there's a little bit of intro of the company, but that's not necessarily relevant. Depends on how you're feeling. If that's a company, if you're working for Google, for example, well, not really need to explain. If you're working for a smaller boutique consulting company, for example, or a niche smaller company, then maybe it made sense. But as I said, it's always very much individual, and there is no size fits all. But probably I would recommend to make your mind up on what kind of content you want to share, or share content. Right. That's always interesting. And actually people connect more to you. And if I say, for example, oh, Caroline, you're a vice president global sales in ABC Sales Technologies, and I aspire to go into that role one day, I maybe feel more interested to connect to you, just because I want to follow your journey and maybe be able to reach out from you from time to time to ask about mentoring, possibly. The next, this is quite easy, volunteer experience. That's quite quick, obviously. Very straightforward, but definitely it should be part of your LinkedIn profile if you have had some volunteer experience. I have on my profile, for example, also that I'm doing some Kiva investments. I'm not sure if you know about this platform, microloans in all over the world, because I think that's definitely something I'm passionate about, and I would definitely include this in your profile, because also it sums up who you are as a person, and being a volunteer and working for charities, for example, is definitely something that should be part of your profile, because this is time you're spending and you're passionate for. The next thing, which is not as straightforward as adding volunteer experience, is adding skills and getting endorsed. And maybe you've seen that on your LinkedIn profile, is you can add skills for yourself, and skills can be added for you. So for example, I could say, Melissa, I think you're great. You have a great organizational talent and communication talent, and I could add it for you, and you can add it for yourself as well. And here the important thing is, this helps people to understand how how like, yeah, in a way, how credible these skills are, the more often you endorse. So for example, in this example, this person is very, or has been endorsed a lot for Microsoft Office, not so much for management, but still 21 people, that's quite a lot. If a skill has been put in by myself and I don't have any endorsements, this can't be found through the recruiter. So recruiters could not find this skill if they were looking for it. So for example, if I'm saying, okay, I'm great at software engineering, but no one thinks I am because I'm not, and I don't get any endorsement, I would not be found, at least not for this specific feature, software engineering. So maybe if you're sitting together with for your business project at university or with your colleagues at work, maybe you could nudge the others to give you a couple of endorsements, and usually it's a give and take situation. So usually when you start giving others endorsements, you would also receive some. And it's also quite interesting in terms of self-reflection, because you can then see, okay, people think I'm very skilled in this, not so much in this. Maybe I should present myself differently, or maybe there's some way to how to better show that I'm actually an expert. I think especially in the virtual world, really showcasing to my colleagues also and to other peers is more tricky, but maybe this gives also the opportunity to reflect and to get feedback. Why do you think, why haven't you endorsed me for this, or why did you endorse me for that? Might be interesting. But I would definitely go back and see what kind of skills you already have on LinkedIn and where you want to get endorsed. And also, and I think this is the same with CVs, sometimes people tend to be very much based on previous or set up, for example, also a CV, I've done that, this and that, but not as aspirational to what goals you want to set, or tweak the CV in a way that it is actually relevant for roles that you want to grow into and that you want to get. So if there is something that you've done 10 years ago and that is really no longer relevant, since it was something that you did in your early career and is in your, maybe you're a manager now or something and have a lot more responsibility, and this is, for example, documentation of things, maybe you can drop this and go for higher topics. And as for your entire LinkedIn profile, this should grow with you. It's not stagnant, and it's not only historic data, but it should be reflective of who you are now and who you want to be, or where you want to go with your career.
We have some more questions in the chat box.
Yes.
So there was one question: how far back would you go in listing your work experience? Would you suggest listing everything?
I would suggest listing everything. However, sometimes when you've been in a role and you've had, I don't know, and you've been, for example, 10 years in the same company, and you had 3 different roles, and you think, for example, you've been a marketing associate, marketing manager, senior marketing manager, then maybe if that has been historic and is no longer relevant because now you're a chief marketing officer, then you could combine and say, okay, I've been 10 years in this role in the field of marketing, and these were things I've done. But I think maybe not for the students, but later on in life, you would also drop like a couple of internships from your CV, because it's just no longer super relevant, because it has been 3 months now, you've been working 10 years in your career. I would say drop irrelevant information from time to time, but I would definitely go stating in which company you've worked, because I find it always very strange if I see, okay, this person is, for example, chief marketing officer and has worked 2 years in a company, and I don't know what this person has done prior to that. So and especially for young people, it gives me a way, okay, this person is now in this role. What do I need to do to get in this role? What have other people been doing to go, what the career steps?
And then the next question is, how detailed should the description be? And is it better in bullet points or in full text? I think this is related to the job itself, right, Kara?
I think for both the summary and the jobs, you can do as you like. I'm a more of a bullet point person. I know a lot of people like the long text version and Probably also depends on what role you are. If you're very good in copywriting and branding, you're probably a long text person, whereas if you're a more analytical person, you're a bullet point person. Then again, it also shows what kind of person you are, and talking about authenticity. So there is no best practice. I think what feels best to you, and you can change it anytime. So if you start with bullet points, and then you have, for example, long Easter weekend, and you say, okay, I want to go more into the nitty gritty and describe more in a full text version, I would say there is nothing speaks against it. So definitely. And as for adding keywords, even if you so that doesn't matter if you're working with bullet points or long text, be sure to have a lot of good keywords in there. Keywords that are relevant for jobs that you want to have, or that you want to be connected with, for example. Were there any more questions as of now?
And I got another question in. So sometimes LinkedIn asks me to rate a connection. Who can tell more about managerial finance, for example? How does that work?
Yeah, I know what you mean. The feature that is usually on your profile, I think, it's a prompt that you rate, that you rank other people or endorse other people. But it's some algorithm behind it, and there is no need to do it. So if you're free, you can do it, but there is no need to do so. And there is, honestly, I'm not too sure what the algorithm behind is. It randomly picks people of your network, I feel. So no really good answer to that one.
And then there's one more question. Does including many skills in your profile lower the value of each individual skills? In other words, is a skill worth more from a CEO perspective if it is only one out of only 3?
No, it's not. I think if I go on your profile, there is usually a longer list for many people. Then I would see the top ones. So I would try not to get fewer skills, but get the top ones rated higher, by probably also reaching out to others and ask them to endorse me for that. But overall, if you want to get found for any of those skills, the more you have, the better it is. For example, I don't think I have Microsoft Office in my featured skills, because, or in my skills in general. Maybe I have. I don't. We'll see. I will check afterwards. But I don't think, for example, Microsoft Office is a skill that I would like to have promoted, because obviously maybe I'd kick it out if I haven't, because Microsoft Office is probably something that should be a no-brainer if you're working in a white-collar job, which I think most of us do.
Great, thanks.
Perfect. Then we're going to the next section, which is a little bit going in the same direction. Request recommendations. So especially if you're in internships and you don't see the people for long, but also if you're working in full-time jobs, you can ask people for recommendations, and usually here it's also give and take. So if you do a recommendation, you give someone a recommendation, the likelihood is very high that it comes back. And what I've seen a lot of times is that people ask, for example, if they leave the job or if their manager changes roles, that they ask the recommendation. Sometimes also works for clients. I see that this recommendation part is very much dependent on the region you're working in. For example, in the US, it's much more a thing than it is in Europe. In Europe, we tend to be a lot more formal. So if you have the chance to get someone write you a recommendation, why not? It's great. Or give some recommendation if you're in the position or someone asks you. I think that's always at least good for your karma, but also good for the person. And if you receive a recommendation, you're like, I don't really like what's in that, there is still the option to not show it on your profile. So you can curate it and make sure you only the very glamorous recommendations are on the profile. Oh yeah, so we're already at the end of the profile section, and now we're going to more personal branding. In terms of academia, it works exactly like it does for the CV part, for the roles. So you would also select the university that you've been and make sure that you really, again, select in the list. And here Also feel free to share as much as you want. If you have like the best grades, why not share? Why not share it? But there is no need to share any grades. I don't see people searching for specific grades. I know that's top on mind if you're at university. Quite soon after you getting starting your career, it is not as relevant any longer, which is a good thing if you're writing your thesis at the moment. So I would maybe, what I definitely would highlight is maybe if you're doing if you have any activity, for example, in the CEMS alumni board or student association or anything, then it would definitely good to put in, just because it's some extracurricular activity that is definitely interesting, especially if you're at the beginning of the career and there is just not as much internships or experience to show. That's certainly always an extra gold star that people are looking for. Great. I'm just check. Yeah, exactly. I with my polls, I'm multitasking, so I'm trying to multitask as good as possible. Yeah, exactly, because I see now I nearly forgot about this. So don't forget about also other things, and these are, most of them are like really no-brainers, like location. We just talked about education. If you had some publications, like if you've written a book or have some interesting articles published, also share that on LinkedIn, and other accomplishments wherever it fits. And if you have any questions, put it in the chat. But I will also raise a poll now, because now we're talking about thought leadership on LinkedIn. And I'm launching a poll that's saying, are you posting updates articles on LinkedIn? Yes, no, infrequently. I'm also on the no, infrequently part, as it seems like a lot of you are as well. Okay, we have, most of you have voted, so I'm ending the poll now. And as we can see, no and infrequently. To share my personal story, last year, January 2020, I had the great idea of being regularly publishing interesting things, where I was, maybe interesting events I would attend. As you can imagine, March 2020 stopped it abruptly, my career in publishing things. Yeah, because with COVID, there was not too much to publish anymore from my end. But that's interesting. And as I said, also here, authenticity is key. If you're saying, I don't like to publish, no worries, no need. If you say, maybe this is something I'm interested, but I don't yet feel super comfortable in doing so, maybe it's interesting to try and to take this this session today as an opportunity to think about what kind of areas would I like to post in, what kind of knowledge pieces, what could I share to make myself even more credible as an expert, or present my expert in the field, the expert that I already am, but make it more public. So for example, I see a lot of my colleagues on LinkedIn, they would post LinkedIn related things. Others post more about private successes, for example, if you run a marathon or anything alike. So there are different ways on what things you're publishing, for example. And I would like to show you the two options today of how you can publish. Because one are the updates, and maybe you've seen it on LinkedIn. It's usually quick snippets, 1 sentence, 2 sentences, maybe a picture, a link that is shared, or an article that's shared. That is usually quite quick and quite easy, although it sounds easier than it is, because when you're sitting there and you're crafting even just 2 lines of text that you know will go to your network, seems very daunting. However, publishing then is even the bigger, probably also workload, because publishing is really like a blog post. So this is about going more deeper into topics. For example, if you're an expert in sustainability and you would like to share some interesting information, then it definitely makes sense to go into that. Or what people love is 10 tips to do this and this. And especially in publishing world, what also is always interesting is personal experiences. So I see a lot of moms and dads coming back from maternity, paternity leave. How did they come back into workspace? But it might also be very interesting, for example, if you're a student and currently abroad, maybe saying something about your experience at the university that you're currently at, or how, for example, some volunteer experience, some internship has shaped your career trajectory. So this is definitely something that is to be, that could also be an option for the long form publishing. I'm showing how this is working in detail. So share status updates, it's very easy. It's really just 2 sentences. Is if you click on sharing, it's usually the thing that comes on top on your newsfeed. You can add hashtags to be found also through the hashtags. And I would definitely always work with a video or a picture. Or what I've seen recently quite a lot is because people have a little bit more time on their hand and invest more in themselves. So they receive certificates, and a lot of people post also about their certificates, just sharing their accomplishments. It does not necessarily have to be something just related to your work or to your studies, but also something that you're proud of. Or as you can often see also what you've, like people with their family being thankful, people in the work space, for example. By the way, I'm sitting in my living room. I could also take a picture and say, okay, my workspace also working fine. So you're very free in sharing whatever you like, but obviously also professional, personal, whatever you deem relevant in terms of your personal brand. And I would.
Annika, regarding that personal brand, so I see quite often on LinkedIn more personal messages that some people would previously recommend to post on other social media like Facebook or Instagram or something. And then in the comment section, there's an entire discussion about posting personal stuff on LinkedIn and keeping it professional and stuff. What's your opinion on that? Is it, I mean, I can imagine that it's part of your personal brand and you want to show the world who you are, right? What are your thoughts on like posting personal stuff on there?
Interesting. That's a good point, and I see the same. And I think it has changed quite a bit over the last year because personal life and professional life is blended so much. So, I also like to see what people are, for example, what their workspace looks like, or if they have like the little ones or the dogs on their lap and they take a picture. I think it depends a lot on what kind of character you are. I think I like it because it's, again, authentic. If you're struggling having, I don't know, 3 kids at home and a dog, and both parents are working at home. So I think, yeah, I think it's the personal preferences. I, for example, like it. Some people can go a little overboard, I have to admit. But in terms of doing it or not, I think always think of your personal brand. How do you want to be seen? And as we all know, since the prime days of Facebook, the internet never forgets. So make sure that it's something that you want, a facet of yours that you want to be shown to others, and that you would also share in your, if you were talking to other people. And maybe on that note also, we've seen quite the rise of social CEOs. Maybe you've also seen a couple of them. So in Germany, Tim Höttgens has been posting quite a bit. He's the CEO of Deutsche Telekom, or obviously in the US, we have, obviously no one comes to mind. In Germany, there would also be Tina Müller, CEO of Douglas, perfume brand, perfume empire, I'd say. And a lot more CEOs try to become social, sharing more things that are not only work relevant. We also have politicians on the platform. For Germany, this would be our digital ministry for digital. I don't know how to say that correct in English. Dorothea Bär, and she's also she's usually recycling or taking the same information, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So we see the lines getting more blurry, and for all kinds of either if you're an individual contributor, a CEO, or a politician, it gets more and more about the brand that you represent. And I think it's also, as the CEO and top manager, it has become a lot more difficult these days because people can track you anywhere, can see you anywhere, can take pictures of you anywhere. It's not as easy as before. So it's really about curating, crafting your personal brand in terms of how you want to be seen. And I think it starts when you're young in your career, as a student, for example. Perfect. Any other questions online?
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, perfect. Just quickly for wrapping up the update section. Here it's, as I said, authentic voice, post frequently, but only as frequently as you wish. As I said, my career was very short in update and sharing updates, but I might come back. Might do a comeback. Include rich media, videos and pictures are great. If you're outside, for example, and see something or something makes you curious, something interesting about a specific brand. Exactly. And if someone reacts to your post, and I guess this is the same on all social media, same on Instagram, same on Facebook and TikTok. I actually don't know if you can do it or not. Too old for that. But if someone comments on your page, make sure you comment back and interact with them also by like doing any engagement thing like sharing, etc. Or like exactly. And maybe be aware that if you click on something, if you engage with some posts, for example, if you like something, comment something, it goes out to your network as well. So it might not be on top of their newsfeed, but it can be if they have a specific, if it just pops up, if it's very new, very recent. So only think only about sharing and liking stuff that you're actually also fits with your personal brand, not because it's your friend and you want to support his or her post. And for publishing on LinkedIn, it's a little bit more extensive because publishing really becomes part of your profile. Updates usually like you post them and a couple of days later, they're no longer relevant. Publishing on LinkedIn is because it's more of an, you take more time, it becomes part of your profile. People can then easily see that it's connected to your profile and it gets shared wider to your network. So if you have a topic that you're really keen on sharing a deep exploration, I would definitely go for the blog post version, which you can all find here when you say start a post, you can click here on the little blue thingy, write an article. And then within the article, you can always share pictures, bullet points, videos. And as it says here, same authentic, share photos. And here the headlines obviously very important because you want people to click on it to see the full length of the article. And in terms of article length, I saw an article of one of my colleagues, and it gives you an idea of how long you need to read it. And it said 17 minutes, and I was like, I don't know, maybe not. Or I was clicking on it and scrolling through. But here also, I mean, as for everyone today, attention span gets quite short. So keep it very short. I would say maybe reading time of 5 minutes is probably limit. Make it more of a series if you have more to say. And with the publishing, if you publish an article, then you can see progress. Also with the updates, you can see progress and you can see what kind of people have interacted, who has seen it, who has clicked it, who has shared it. And this is quite interesting. If you post an update, it's quite nice. You see, oh, I guess with all social media, again, you want to have a lot of followers, a lot of likes. And this is also what you can see on LinkedIn. And this already leads me to the end of my monologue about tips and tricks of LinkedIn. Are there any more questions at the moment? Or is there also something that we don't have that much time anymore, but if there's something that you like to discuss, raise your hand and you get unmuted. And meanwhile, I will also share this slide because I have a little QR code here, which you can scan with your phone. And then connect with me on LinkedIn. So if there are no questions at the moment, questions later on, happy to connect. And this is also something you can actually do on LinkedIn if you're in your profile. This is only available on phone, but maybe for some presentations in your at work or in university, that's might be interesting.
Great, thanks, Annika. There's one question that came in from Mats. He's saying, I was looking for people in my network to endorse, but I was only able to do it for people that already had someone else endorse one of their skills. For people with no endorsement yet, the plus sign did not appear. Is that normal? Quite a technical question, but I'm not sure if
Quite a technical question, yeah. Maybe you can send me a message and I will come back to you on that because I don't know at the top of my mind. Usually it should be available.
Oh, there you go, Mats. Connect with Annika and she'll answer to you.
Exactly.
And
take a
another question
question back, yeah.
from Dimitri is, if I show that I'm open for a new job, will the recruiters of my own company see that to double check?
No, they won't see it. And you can only see it when you have a recruiter license. So this already means that you're working in HR, and then no one in your company can see it. So for example, I have it open, turned on anytime. And every time I share my screen, all my clients can see it if I'm in a demo, for example, but my company can't see it. Although from time to time, I honestly think it would be good if your own company would see it, because maybe they would give you the long-awaited promotion or give you another opportunity internal. But I'm a big fan of internal mobility, and sometimes this is not as great lived as it could be.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Right. Are there any other questions from the audience? And if not, we'll wrap it up.
And I said, if there are questions coming up afterwards, feel free to share, to connect anytime. Yep. And maybe should I do the poll now, or is it for the survey?
We'll do that at the end. We'll do that at the end. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect.
So yeah, I think that concludes our session today. Thank you very much for the insights, for the tips and tricks, and also on your personal opinion about some matters that we came across. And it's great that you wanted to give back to the CEMS community as CEMS alumni. It's highly appreciated. I've got a few more announcements that I want to make. So another episode of the CEMS webinar series is coming up on April 22nd. And Professor Kansan Lak is going to talk about how you can influence others in your own organizations, how you can make your voice heard and really be known, not only to people that are on the same level as you, but also on people higher up in the hierarchy. Then there are quite a few of young alumni and senior alumni among us today. I just wanted to let you know that you can register at the CEMS Alumni Platform. It's quite similar to LinkedIn, but it's really focused on CEMS alumni. You can connect with them, you can share updates with them, see where they work, and reach out to them to discuss any new opportunities you have. Another part of the student board is organizing or is hosting the CEMS podcast. It's a podcast about things that go on in the CEMS community. They talk with CEMS alumni and any other interesting insights that they can give in the CEMS community. You can find it on Spotify as well. Maybe one last follow-up question. So we usually, or students usually sometimes get invited by people we've never met, we don't know at all. Would you connect with people you've never met or that you don't know, like they want to connect with you, but would you really do that with them?
It depends. I like when people write a little note, because there is the option to write a little something like 2 lines, why they want to connect, which I find great. Although I had quite a lot of weird ones in the past couple of weeks. So that's why when I don't connect, for example, one was, I do have, I'm looking for a job in, I don't know what it was, data science and something else. And I was very surprised because I'm not a personal headhunter for anyone. So I was like, I don't know if we're the right connecting. But for others, for example, if this is someone, maybe also someone in my company that I don't know, obviously I would connect right away. Or someone that just makes sense from a networking perspective, definitely.
Great, thanks. Thanks everyone for the insights and for the feedback on the survey. And yeah, we hope to see you on the next CEMS webinar on April 22nd, and have a very nice day all. Thanks.